Hi, everyone. Welcome to Youth for Change. We are here with Youth Connections Cafe, where we connect, create, and inspire the youth of today. My name is Lynn McEntee. I'm your host, and it's a pleasure to be here with you for Youth Connections Cafe and for Youth for Change. Shout out to Youth for Change for allowing us to be here on this safe platform where we can discuss matters of the heart that are important to youth and our community. And Youth for Change is all about raising awareness and providing opportunities for youth. We underscore mental health in all that we do, and we celebrate leadership and expertise from other guests in the community. So we welcome you here today. We are talking about human trafficking awareness, and it's a topic that we're all learning to engage in and educate ourselves on. So we value you being here, and thank you for joining us. If you have any ideas for programming, reach out to us on social media. We would look forward to hearing from you. If you would like to be a guest on any of our programs as well, we would love to hear from you. Follow us on social media as well. Thank you so much. We are welcoming Louisa Krause. She is from Elora House. First of all, we're just going to say a quick hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, and thank you. And for anybody that's tuning in, our viewers, we have had Louisa as a guest before. And again, once again, I want to highlight that we so value her opinion. Thank you for joining the conversation, Louisa.
Thanks.
So we're talking about Elora House, but we're also talking about human trafficking awareness. And I
Mhm.
guess I was just talking, coming from the education field as well. It's a couple of youth were just saying to me, you know what, can you tell us what human trafficking is? Is it, yeah, there's a couple of different things that they had in mind. And I thought, you know what, let's tune into the program. You can learn it a little bit from Louisa, join in the conversation, and then educate your friends as well about it.
Mhm.
So, Louisa, could you tell us what human trafficking is?
Sure. So I'm just going to keep it super simple. Human trafficking basically is when someone is being forced to do something, whether it be work or something sexual or anything like that, where they're forced to be doing something or coerced to be doing something and not being paid for it, but someone is making money off of them. That's kind of a simple way to explain it. Um, so like the women we serve are usually sexually trafficked, so they're sexually exploited. So they're being sold against their will to men for sex. And so it's under the umbrella of human trafficking, but it's sexual exploitation. If that does that make sense, Lynn?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, very much so, for
Yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
Is there anybody who wanted to jump in at this point with a quick question? Or are we okay to carry on? We're open to either, so feel free. Um, we'll get going into the conversation a little bit. So, what is human trafficking? But one other question, actually, I'm just looking at their question they posed, and they said, "How is human trafficking different from migrant smuggling?" So that's kind of a broader question, but in the same sense, I know
Mhm.
that you're the founder of Alora House, and Alora House. Maybe you can just speak to that a little bit, and then maybe we can jump into, defining a little bit more.
Okay, well, I don't want to pretend like I know the whole answer to that because I would say my educated assumption would be because human trafficking can happen to anyone living in the country, right? Like it's people that are 80% of the people that are human trafficked are actually 80% are Canadian. So I'm thinking the migrant um, would be like people coming into the country, being smuggled into the country, and they're being forced to work for really low wages or stuff like that. That's my educated guess. I don't really know a lot about that
Mhm.
side of it, but
No, for sure. No, we appreciate that. Thank you for touching on it. And I just wanted to do a shout out to some of our guests that we've had before. We've had guests from PrevNet before and talking about healthy relationships and dating violence and such, but
mm,
also some supports from the regional police,
super important.
which comes in handy. And so they often cross over our guest speakers.
Mhm.
Again, once again, reach out to us with any questions that you may have. We'll put up links on social media that you can follow should you recognize that in the community as well.
Mhm.
So Louise, I think maybe what I'll do is allow you to introduce your slide presentation and your talking points that you would like to do, where you feel
Sure.
comfortable. Yeah.
Sure. What I'll do is, yeah, I'll share my screen and I just put that up there because it's kind of scary when you think about sex trafficking in today's world. It's something that a lot of people don't believe are happening, but it is happening. And actually, yesterday, which is Super Bowl Sunday, is probably the worst day of the year for women who are being trafficked and men, but majority are women because they will bring them in from all over. And so it is a horrible day for women, specifically being trafficked on that day. So I just want to share before I get into all my stats, because we don't, those are important too. I just want to say that the reason I found out about human trafficking and sexual exploitation was because when I was a young girl, I was 15 and a half, I got into a relationship with a much older man. He was in his 20s, and it was not a good relationship. I did not realize until after I was out of the relationship how bad it was, how controlling. He was abusive physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually. And I didn't know how to get out of that relationship. And I had a friend who literally rescued me from that relationship because he had tried to strangle me. And she was like, "You are not staying with him anymore." And I literally didn't feel worth anyone. I didn't know how to leave. I felt guilty, controlled. So when I was listening to my friend of a friend tell me about her daughter being trafficked from University of Guelph, I was like, what? Like this happens in like my city? And like, I always thought of things like that happening, in Thailand or places like that. And I didn't realize that this actually was happening in Canada. And so I started looking into it more and started a group for parents that had children that were trafficked. And it was about 3 years we did that group, and I'm happy to say that we only had really 3 families that were seriously involved, and all 3 families got their girls back, which was really cool. And my biggest advice to them was be a safe place and love them unconditionally. And so the girls all came back, which was awesome. But yeah, so like that's how I got involved, because I myself was not a victim of human trafficking, but was a victim of a very abusive relationship, which once I hear their stories, I can relate in some small ways of what it's like to be controlled and how it feels to not know what to do and not know how to get out. Because many people say, why do they not just leave? But there's safety issues. I felt my life was being threatened, and he was threatening to hurt himself as well. And that's just a small scale of what happens to these victims. Their lives are being threatened, their families' lives are being threatened, and it's real stuff. Like it's really serious. So I just thought I would share a few statistics with you guys, and anytime you want to stop and ask a question, you can. Let me see here. I'm going to just close this down a little bit. Hold on.
Louisa, thank you for sharing that very personal story.
Yeah,
Thank you. Appreciate
no
that.
problem. So I know I have to update some of these numbers. I recently saw it's something like now 4,000 of, if I remember correctly, 4,000 incidents of human trafficking since that I saw the statistics recently, and I could be wrong, but females are the majority of victims, whether they're young or old, doesn't matter, but they're 97% of victims are females. And 40%, 45% of them are between the ages of 18 and 24. And we've seen victims, obviously, even under 18. I've had people call me about a 7-year-old, a 12-year-old. We actually housed a 14-year-old. So this is very serious. I just recently met someone who was been trafficked since she was 13 and
Oh,
she's 21 and she
wow.
just got away from that situation. So 8 years
Mm.
living in her parents' home,
Oh
but
my.
being trafficked,
Wow.
like parents thinking she was defiant, thinking she was a rebel, but meanwhile she was actually being trafficked. And
Mm.
so there's like a lot to be said about this. Um, these are just some statistics about ages, which I kind of already talked about. So I'll just,
So Louisa, her parents did not know. They were not aware.
they just found out. They just found
Wow.
out. They actually thought that she was just being kind of defiant, you
Mm.
know?
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah,
very, very
living.
sad.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
very sad. I'm gonna just skip through some of this stuff.
Yeah,
Okay,
for
so
sure.
just a few I think this is important to know. 80% of human trafficking victims in Canada are Canadians. So a lot of people don't believe that, but it's true. And 79% live in private residence, which sounds crazy. Like, how can that be happening? But they are so controlled by their pimp or by their trafficker that they will leave their house and go do what they're supposed to do. The rest of them are from group homes, hotels, shelters, homeless, whatever. Um, and a lot of the recruiting in Canada is done now, especially through online, through Snapchat, Instagram, all sorts of stuff. They'll build relationships through where you work, bars, malls. I've heard of, actually recently heard of a little girl with her dad who is just like, I think she was 4 or 5 years old. And he stood at the door and let her go into the bathroom, and she ended up she wasn't coming back out.
Mm.
And he was like asked a lady to go in and check for her, and she couldn't find her. And a few minutes later, these two old ladies came out with a big stroller, and they had like a blanket over the stroller, and he saw his daughter's shoe.
Oh my,
And
no.
in that short period of time, they had drugged her and they had shaved her head, and like they were taking her because that's what they were going to do. They were going to groom her to be trafficked. So women and men are the perpetrators. Like it's not just, it's probably half and half now. The statistic that I saw, it used to be more men, but now it's men and women who are recruiting for trafficking. It's terrible. I don't know how anybody could do that, but especially a woman to do that to a child is beyond me.
Mm.
Um, it does say here the most common way victims meet their traffickers online. Often, the trafficker is someone they know. Uh, I've seen that lots of times at a lore house where it's their uncle, it's their stepdad, it's their whatever friend or supposed friend, you know? Um, It's estimated that 60% of people who are trafficked are actually traveling along the 400 highways. So, like any hotel down the highways, it is happening. It's happening in Guelph, it's happening in Fergus, Elora, it's happening in Elmira, it's happening in Toronto and Ottawa, like Kitchener. It doesn't matter. Wherever there's a hotel, generally it's happening, which is very, very sad and very, very scary. Um, so sad, sad, sad statistics. In
Mhm.
our area, I don't know where where are you guys from, Lynn?
Ontario based.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
right. Okay. So in our little area of Wellington County and Guelph, um, we are shocked at the amount of people that we're getting calls for. I know that talking with a um, a woman from another agency, she alone had um, a case management list of, it was like 60 or 70 women she was working with just in this area. So it's like there's a lot of this going on. And again, we need to be keeping our eyes and ears open, especially anywhere that youth hang out. Um, you need to keep your eyes open for that. So it talks here, it says, like, our youth are especially marginalized youth. There are those who prefer to pretend it isn't an issue here, but many women and girls in Canada are vulnerable. And not just vulnerable like in the sex trafficking, but what happens is a lot of these women encounter a lot of health problems. So be it an STI, UTIs, cancer, strangulation, brain damage, so many physical injuries, trauma. So their mental health, their physical health, everything is so like, it's so severe. The psychological problems that they have, the complex PTSD, the mood problems, eating disorders, addictions, like these are all things that are done from the damage of the trauma that these women and young women go through. Any questions so far? So I'm throwing a lot of information at you. No? Here's a number that
Any questions?
oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Pardon me, I was muted. Any questions from Sam, Amanda, Jack? Would be appropriate time. But feel free anytime, as Louise
Yeah,
mentioned.
anytime. Just
Yeah.
put your hand up, wave me down, yell at me, whatever. So this could be slightly out of, I'm thinking this number is probably more than it shows here, but 280,000 is the average income a sex trafficker in Canada makes on one victim. Most traffickers don't have one victim. If they have one, they have more. It's very rare that they would just have one. So it's a huge, huge safety risk. It's a huge, it's neck and neck with with drug trafficking. Selling drugs is really good money too. And but the difference is that drugs, once you sell them, they're gone, but people you can continue selling over and over again. So it's definitely not a good thing. Let me just go through some of these. These are some things that the women themselves have mentioned. Struggles that survivors face when reintegrating after having lived as a trafficked person are very often overlooked. People lose sight of the fact that it's not easy just to, get some medical care and then just go on with your life, get a job and, just forget about everything that just happened. After being trafficked, many of the women actually have a really hard time living a normal life because most of them don't know where to seek help. A lot of them, even if they do seek help, it's very difficult for them to get the proper help they need. And there are like Victim Services is an amazing organization that when someone goes to them that is trafficked and they share their story with them, they provide many supports through something called VQRP, and it's specifically for trafficked victims. And so they're able to get money for food, clothing. They're able to help them, like we do this as well. We help them find secure housing, therapy, like all sorts of things. But a lot of victims are afraid to talk to the police or talk to anyone. So often they're not getting the support that they could get because it's really shameful and difficult to talk about their experience. It's hard to talk about it because it's very vulnerable. And so most of these victims have a really hard time getting their life back together, which is super sad. Here's just a few of the realities with the victims. In Guelph, I have to update this. It is now a 10-year wait list to get housing, supportive housing. It used to be a 7-year wait list. Now it's 10. We do have they do have some priorities on human traffic victims, but it will still often take like a year, depending on where they're trying to go and move. Many of our girls do not have their education finished. Often they've just been sort of passed through the system, and because of the trauma they were enduring during school, they weren't able to complete or complete well. Often they have mental health, and addiction becomes a lifelong struggle if they're not dealing with it. They're often branded with tattoos, which we actually help them get those removed for free, which is great. And often they don't have an income. They don't have benefits for like going to the dentist. We have a girl right now that has lost most of her teeth and has like such horrible teeth right now. And she had no way of, she didn't know what to do. So we were able to, we get them connected with dentists. We help them get coverage and all that stuff. So that's really great. They have limited job skills. A lot of the girls, when they come, they don't even know how to clean a toilet. They don't know how to cook. Some of them do. Some of them are great chefs, but a lot of them aren't. A lot of them lack some life skills, depending on when they started their trauma. That makes a big difference if they started when they were really young or if they were older and all that kind of thing. Social skills, they lack in often family and social support. They're too embarrassed to tell their family, or they're too afraid to tell their family, or they lack family support because their families aren't really healthy relationships, which is often the case as well. Not always. We've had women that have great families and that they're loved, but they're still victims of human trafficking.
Would they also feel intimidated and perhaps threatened to share
Yes.
with family? Yes, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And afraid if they tell their parents or their siblings that they could be in danger too.
Yeah.
So it's a real mess. It's a real mess for them. I know how I felt when I was going through my abusive relationship, and nobody knew except my one friend. And for years, I didn't tell anybody. And it really, looking at what some of these women go through, not that I'm supposed to compare, it was nothing compared to what they went through. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like the damage and it's just so much. And I'm very thankful that I had family and friends and my faith to really help me become who I am today. Not that I've arrived, because I still have lots of growing to do, but do you know what I mean? Like, you need support, and that's the biggest thing these women need is support. They need a support system. They don't just need a therapist. They do need a therapist, but they need a support system. They need people to love them and care for them. So they, of course, have boundary and trust issues. So they have relationship issues. They usually go in and out of relationships poorly once they've been trafficked until they are healed from that, right? So they need to go on a healing journey. Often they come with criminal records, which are not their fault. Often they're the fault of the trafficker. So we partner with different organizations that can help get those charges removed. And stuff like that. So we actually do a lot with these women to try to help them get their life back, which is great. So let me just share this.
I'll just remind our viewers, you're watching Youth for Change, Youth Connections Cafe, and thank you for joining us. And reach out to us on social media, as I had mentioned before, if you have any ideas for programming. This is a very, very important topic in our society. Thank you, Louisa, for your contribution.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
These are actually two quotes from a resident. So one says, you literally go through a period of shock, culture shock, of trying to understand, how do I communicate with people? How do I work in a legitimate legal job setting? What rights do I have? And how do I put forth boundaries? All of those things are so new. Another one said, by the time I left, one of the many rules of my trafficker was no reading, no writing to anyone. The amount of isolation made me feel like I was returning from Mars after a decade being trafficked from the age of 12 to 24. I missed so many things in the real world. I missed the milestones of growing up in a loving environment. Nobody knew what to do with me, and I didn't know what to do with me. What was I supposed to do? I guess I'm supposed to get an education. Maybe I'm supposed to get a job. Maybe I'm supposed to get married and have a baby. And it's so sad when I like read those things because often when they come to us, they ask us if they can go to the bathroom. They ask us if they can have a glass of water. They ask us for the smallest things. It's because they were not allowed to go to the bathroom when they had to ask permission for everything. And they apologized for everything because they were always in trouble. And so the emotional abuse is probably the hardest one to deal with because physical wounds heal generally. But the emotional battering that happened with these victims is just really difficult to get over. So these are just, I mean, I kind of mentioned some of these things already. There's many things to getting them reintegrated into society and help them build new lives. So the biggest thing that is difficult is safe long-term housing. So right now, most of these girls, if they didn't have places like Alora House, or there's a place called Seeds, there's another place called Safe Hope. If they didn't have long-term housing like these places, they would just be going to shelters, or they'd be going to housing that is supported by the government, which is okay, but it's not actually the best place for them because there's a lot of trouble there. There's a lot of folks there that could get them in trouble. And so it's long-term housing is a huge need, and it's always been a need. And I'm told it'll always be a need because it's just so rampant, right? Gradual independent living programs is a way that we are working with them. Education and scholarships like these. I know of many of the girls who had started an education in university or was working towards doing something and then ended up being trafficked and then didn't have the money after to go back and do the school. So what do? Do they go work at McDonald's? And not that there's anything wrong with working at McDonald's, but they can't support themselves. And actually, it's a very stressful place to work, which, you know, it is what it is, right? So they need trauma therapy, they need addiction support, they need medical, legal services. And so we really try at Alora House to do work with them in all those areas. We really collaborate with other organizations. We work with, therapists. We work with the RAM clinic for addictions. We work with rehab centers. We work with the Homewood for mental health, with the police, with the hospitals. Like, we are working with as many organizations in the community that we can to put together wraparound support for these women, and allow them to stay with us and begin their life over again. And so we have 3 stages: rest, rebuild, and restart. And our first stage we had in place, it'll be 5 years in March that we opened Alora House. And for the first 2.5 to 3 years, we basically just had the first rest stage. And that was just women would come in, we would try to help them get some therapy, help them get grounded and sort of stable. And then we would send them to either different programming if they wanted, or they chose where they wanted to go. And it was like a 3 to 4 month stay. But what we found was there's still not enough second stage programming out there. And the model that we're following had 3 stages. So then we opened a second stage where we basically now are helping them rebuild their lives by teaching them about volunteering and education, getting their education goals and helping them get jobs. And working through that. And then the restart is the phase we're actually starting to implement right now. We have kind of a little pilot project with one of our graduates that we are helping her. So we basically helped our last few graduates get apartments and help them furnish those apartments and filled their cupboards with food. And then ongoing case management if they wanted. So if they're close by, then we can offer them a lot more than if they go far away. But the ones that went far away, we got them associated with other organizations that could help them and made those access points for them. So that was really cool. But so now the third stage basically is what we're focusing on. And my dream is to get some more housing, like maybe a big sixplex or like an apartment building or like a massive place. I just really want the girls to have their own space, but still be mentored. So we get them mentors, case management, therapy. And so we help them with all those things. So they're still under our care, but they're living outside of our home. So that's really cool. And we're working on that. We don't have all of that completely in place, but we are working towards that and raising funds to be able to make that a success. Because we want to actually help them get a better place than just like, what the government can provide them, and help them with we want to raise money so that we can actually help them for their first year at least, cover some of those costs so that they can be independent and living in a good place where they feel safe.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop sharing because you don't need to see the frame that says questions, but if you have questions, you can ask them.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I know, Jack, did you want to mention what you had shared with us to the group, and then we can kind of go from there. Give Louisa just a moment to regroup there. So Jack, you had typed in some information. I'll let you. Oh,
Okay, that what you were talking about, the 18 and the 14-year-olds.
Yes.
So I went on that website. It says 25 to 24.
mhm.
Sorry.
For example, sorry, Jack, I just couldn't hear. So 25 to
It's
24?
it said 18 to 24, and then the next part is 25 to 34.
As
Um,
in trafficking?
Yeah,
so
Yeah.
yeah, I'm seeing what you wrote down. 23% of victims are between 17 and under, 42% between 18 to 24, and 23% between 25 and 34. The numbers change every year, but the majority of people are between 18 and 24, but they are younger, and we have seen them quite older too, like in their 40s and 50s. Not that that's really old, but that is much older than 18.
yeah. That's why I looked it up. Cause
Mhm. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Did you go on Statistics Canada?
yeah,
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
good.
Good researching, good resourcing there.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
was saying that I had just looked it up. I hadn't changed the numbers on the thing, but I knew the numbers slightly changed,
Mhm.
for sure. But like it shows here, about half of them are still between the ages of 18 and 24. That's the majority.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're not being groomed before that age.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Jack.
I have a
No
Yeah.
question.
problem.
Could
Yeah,
you
thank
talk
you,
a little
Jack.
bit more
Really
about
appreciate
Laura
that.
House?
And then Amanda, I'll let you take the floor. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about Laura House.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, good timing for that. Thank
Sure.
you so much.
So what do you want to know about Alora House?
Uh, well, I know you're in Guelph and I kind of know what you do, but just sort of like what wraparound services you offer and
Okay.
how many women are there at any one time, how many clients, how long they stay with you, those kinds of things.
Okay. So the location is actually in Guelph and Wellington County. So I would not say that I'm in Guelph because that's actually not true. We're not right in Guelph. But we are in the area for sure. And we don't really like to tell people exactly where we are because that's a safety issue for our residents. What we do is we have case managers that help them with housing, help therapy, help them work with another organization to help those be taken away. They do a bunch of things with them actually, but anything to do with like any community stuff, the case managers take care of that. For example, even brain injuries. We have a lot of women who come in with brain injuries, so we work with the Brain Injury Association, and we get them free iPads or laptops, stuff like that. So we work with them with other agencies. That's a big thing we do. We also have programming during the week. So Monday to Friday, they are working on a bunch of different things that are really good for them. For example, when they get up, they're besides the normal, have your breakfast, take your medication. They're working on journaling. They have group huddles in the morning and the evening to check in and see how they're doing mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Then they do exercise, they do therapy, they do groups. So like lots of good groups on healthy relationships, conflict management, all that kind of stuff. They do art therapy once a week, and they do horse therapy. Sometimes we have little kittens or puppies come in just for like pet therapy. So we do a bunch of different things like that. And then they also, depending on their stages, they will do AA or NA or Celebrate Recovery, depending on what their addiction is and if they've been addicted. So there's all these things that we work on with them. They do get to have some fun times and get to do some fun things as well, of course. They do have free times during the evening, but we don't have too much free time during the week because they're working on themselves. So the big thing is that they are to be working on themselves every day to be the best person they can be. And they also learn life skills like they help around the house, they clean, they have chores, they help. Some of them don't know how to cook, so we teach them how to cook. They learn to do laundry, they shovel the driveway, they cut the grass. We actually have last year we did some gardening. Unfortunately, a lot of our garden was eaten up by all the friendly little furry animals that live around us. So this year we're getting a greenhouse. So we're going to have like a horticultural part of our program now where they're going to learn how to garden and harvest and can stuff and stuff like that. Just all life skills, right? And we do have mentors for them as well. So there is quite a bit to it. 3 stages, which I already mentioned. So yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh, there you go.
I'm just jumping in for a moment, Louisa. I know last time when you came, you had spoken about extensively about Allure House, and Amanda's joining us today, learning about it for the first time. But it really has grown. When you think about the inception, you are the founder, and when you think about your first idea, that first bubble, that okay, I really would like to do this, and you see the evolution in the programming, that is really impressive. Because that takes a lot of people working together and putting the community into the root of what the mission is of Alora House, as you talked about, right?
Yeah.
So basically,
Definitely, lots of good people have joined our team, which has been the reason why we can do so many things, because I could not do it by myself, that's for sure. Not that smart.
yeah, I think we all have something to offer at the table, right? And
That's right. That's right.
they're reclaiming themselves and sometimes finding themselves anew in many ways, right? So therapeutic opportunities are so key from everything from A to Z, from the time you get up in the morning to the time you go to bed. And it's interesting you mentioned the programming is thorough during the weekdays, that they're working on themselves, and it's a constant evolution to reclaim their life. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah, even down to eating habits, right? Like we want to, obviously we do have a lot of women who have eating disorders, so we try to be very careful with that. But we do encourage eating like good, healthy eating habits,
mm,
not starving yourself or stuff like that. And so that's important. And even just like taking time to rest, like I tell them all, if somebody actually offered me a place to go for a year and I wouldn't have to be responsible for anything other than taking care of myself and I didn't have to worry about bills, I'd be there. Like, take me now.
right?
So that I could rest and become a better person, I'm in.
Yeah.
And that's what we give them the opportunity to do.
To be present, I guess, right?
Yeah, to be present and figure out who they are again.
Yeah.
Because I know when I left my very toxic relationship, I honestly didn't know what I liked. Like, I don't know if you guys ever saw The Runaway Bride
Mm.
and how she didn't even know what eggs she liked. That's kind of how I felt. I didn't know what music I liked. I didn't know anything because I had just became the person that my boyfriend wanted me to be. So it's figuring out what you like, what you don't like, what you need, and all those things.
Mhm.
That's what we try and foster is a culture of love and acceptance. And
Mhm. Amanda, does that help? Yeah, would you like to add on to that, Amanda? Or
Sorry, I was on mute. No, I think I learned a lot and I really appreciate the information. It's
yeah,
great.
for sure. And then I guess I wanted to take a moment just to talk about healthy relationships and, maybe the triggers early on in life. For example, you mentioned that it's getting younger. Maybe it's always been there, but it's the knowledge of it being younger is becoming more apparent to people. Um, are there any triggers that you could mention to some of our youth that are listening and tuning in, learning about this topic for the very first time, maybe have seen it, not quite sure what they're seeing?
Mhm.
But is there anything that they might identify in themselves and or community? Mhm.
yeah, I think there's some like really common, simple things. Like if anyone's trying to control you in any way, like you can't they want to take over your phone or they want to have your password or they want to have access to your account, your bank account, or they won't let you go see your friends anymore. They get mad at you or make you feel guilty for having other friends besides them. Or if they're just like really love bombing you and like really ridiculously buying you expensive gifts or promising you things or things like this. These are all things kind of indicators that this is not a healthy relationship. Um, all things that I went through that I didn't recognize because as a child, I think I was very much controlled. And so I didn't know any different. I didn't actually know what a healthy relationship was. So, of course, when I walked into a relationship, it was easy for me to walk into an unhealthy one because I didn't know any different. And so, someone demanding things of me, someone not allowing me my space, someone not allowing me to make my own decisions, making me feel guilty for not saying yes all the time, or you know what I mean? Like those things are like red flags, but especially if it's a girl with a guy and he's like wanting to like he'll get mad if she talks to anybody else, or he'll, say you're not allowed to go out with your friends anymore. Like all those kinds of things. They or they videotape you.
Okay. Yeah.
They often do that. They will videotape you without you knowing and then use it as blackmail. This is something that I tell all my children and all the women. You know, I'm not trying to be mean, but a lot of I don't know about girls. Like I know that there are girls that take advantage of boys, but I do know that for men, and younger and older, often they will say whatever the girl wants to hear so that they can get what they want. And that getting what they want could be anything. It could be sex, it could be money, it could be whatever. And so we have to be really confident and aware of who we are. We need to become confident people before we get into a relationship. And I know we all want to have a relationship with someone healthy and we want to be loved 100%. And I agree. Everybody deserves to be loved and in a good relationship. But it is better to have no one than to have an abusive relationship and be in an unhealthy relationship. So it's just like really important. And there's lots of things you can access. We have an eight course book for the women. It's like 250 pages or something like that. It's ridiculous that they go through. It's a curriculum that they go through, and they go through healthy relationships, all sorts of things, to confidence, like to stop having victim mentality thinking, all these kinds of things. It's really important.
That is, and providing a curriculum for sure. And Louise, I wondered if do you have any guests that come in to the safe house to speak? Is that an opportunity to do, or is it kind of?
So often, like even our therapists are mostly online. Some of them will meet once or twice before, and we'll do like horse therapy in person. But we don't do a lot of having people come in unless we can't do it any other way.
Right.
We have had like a lady who was, because then we have to put them through, like they have to be like have police checks done, and they have to understand what they're dealing with. They have to do like human trafficking courses. They're all done online, but so any of our volunteers go through all the same training and all the same stipulations that a paid staff does. So we had a lady come in from AA, and she wanted to volunteer with us. As an AA representative, she had to go through everything, and she's now a great volunteer and stuff like that. But we don't just kind of like have people come in, because it's just every time we have another person who knows exactly where we are, then it's just another possibility of someone being taken advantage of because they could find out where we are. And it's safety. It's all about safety.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I wonder if we can take a moment. Sam, any questions at all? I see that your microphone is open. I'm just checking in with Sam. Any questions that we can insert at this point? We're still okay for a little bit of time, Louisa? What do we have you for? Another 5, 10?
We started late, so that's fine.
Okay, super duper. Thank you so much. I wondered if we can field a question from Sam. Yeah. Nope, I think he might be away from the laptop. So, Louisa, I think it's really important for me personally, and coming from the education field, and personally, when I say that, I think all-inclusive and all-encompassing education for people is so important, and it's wonderful to have two males here on this conversation today, because I think that that's really key, going back into our communities and sharing knowledge that they have learned, and perhaps guiding other people should they recognize any signs or whichever. So I think I see that more and more, where male counterparts are becoming interested so that they can support other people in the community. Sam, I just saw your microphone kind of.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
First of all, I was saying thank you, Lisa, for all this information. Like a lot of things we know, but it's good to hear from the person who's doing every day. So I was just listening to you guys. Just that one question that I have in my mind, like out of 10 victims comes to you guys, I'm just giving just an example. How many people, like victims, wants to get better, or how many victims come and spend time with you guys, and then go back to the same place because the pimp is still outside and waiting for them or something? And how much the law justice system in Canada take the pimps in and keep it them, for a good time. Like, mostly they get bail and stuff and they come out and they do the same thing. These are the things that coming in my mind. Like, like not everybody wants to get better because sometimes they have a habit. They don't change. They come, they spend some time, rest, food, eat, education, whatever. Then they go back to the same, with more knowledge and more stuff. So can you just give a little bit details about these stuff? Like how many
Yeah.
people come and how
So-
many wants to stay, how many don't want to stay, and
Sure.
what happened to them when they go out, they go back to the same business, like doing
Okay.
is business means business for some, but it's a shame to our community that nobody supports. Like we should all come and look for all these. They're somebody's kids,
Yeah,
We should
no,
come out
good.
and do
That's a
that.
really good question.
Thank you.
And one thing I can say is that when I heard several ladies speak, the one thing they said was if they had a better choice to go somewhere, they would go. So if they knew someone could keep them safe so they wouldn't be killed and they would provide for them, they would leave. Most of them would leave. They're scared to leave and they don't have anywhere to go. So now that's just the side of it. But as far as we do not just take anybody in. We vet the people, we interview them. So before they come in, we have to know they're off drugs. So they have to go to a detox. We have to talk to them a couple times and question them. What are your goals? Why do you want to come to Allure House? Because if they just want like a place to sleep, then we will direct them to a shelter. If they're actually like, no, like I want to change my life. I want to grow. I want to become the person I used to be. I want to get my education goals. Like I have goals, I have dreams. I want to become a better person, then we will take them. If they're just like, yeah, I just want a safe place to sleep, we can direct them and help them get that, but that's not what we are.
One
Because
second. One second. So once you take the interview, you say no, they just want to sleep, so you send them to shelter. Then after the shelter, they go back to the system, like same thing what they're doing.
I don't know those numbers. All I know is that the shelter generally, that is a problem with shelters, is that they only can stay for 30 days and then they have to go somewhere else. The problem is that if they come to us and don't want to actually work on themselves, they will not want to do the programming and they will be disruptive and they won't, like they'll just end up leaving. So there's no point bringing someone in who's not serious about change and addiction being dealt with. So when they come to us, we have a very high percentage of people that do well now, because now we've only been doing this for we've only been doing the second stage for a couple of years. So, but the numbers are very good. So the ladies who stay for like the second stage fully, so we've had about 8 or 9 just trying to think. I actually have the numbers written down somewhere, but in my files. But I know, like, for example, this past year, we graduated 4 women. And the year before, I think it was 4 or 5. And so because they stay with us for over a year, so we only can take 5 girls at a time. But I'm just thinking, and then there was some other ones that only stayed for stage 1. So when we looked at the numbers recently, it was close to like 90% of them that were still doing really well. There was like a couple people that only stayed for a very short time with us that we don't actually know what happened. Like they left because there was 3 people that I know of that left that were having mental health struggles and couldn't stay, like didn't want to stay. They just wanted to go. And so we brought them home or brought them wherever. We always bring them to somewhere safe, unless they just take off because they're not in prison. They can just leave if they want to. But those people, out of those 3, I know 1 is doing well. The other 2, I'm not sure what happened to them. But all the other ones that have actually stayed with us for any length of, like a good length of time, over 6 months, are doing really good. They're not going back into the the world of sex trafficking. Like a bunch of them are finishing. One right now is finishing her education and getting her children back. Another one got her children back. Another one is working towards finishing her education. Another one went to college and is now working with us. There's like a bunch of them that are doing really well. So, but it's also a short period of time. Like we've only been doing this for 5 years, so we don't have a huge amount of people that went through the second stage yet. So, but I can tell you this, that I know that I know from the States, they have a model out there called SELA Freedom, which is the model that we're following. And they've been around for 20 years. And their model has close to 90%. If the girls stay past the first stage, which is just like the stabilization phase, like 90% of them do well and stick to it. Because what every single person needs that has been in trauma is they need to be healed, and they need a support system, and they need love, and they need a house, and they need to be safe. And so we provide all those things for them, and then we help them build community and help them build support systems. And that doesn't mean that they might not fall or have mistakes, but we're there to help them and continue supporting them even as they've left our place. Whereas before, there wasn't that many places like that. Like even, for example, if you go to, you guys all know about the Homewood, right? You can walk into Homewood and you stay there for, let's say, I know this because we have our women go there sometimes, and they'll go in there, let's say, for 9 weeks and have a trauma program, which is lovely and it's great. But when they walk out of that program, they have no access to any of those doctors anymore, any of those therapists, any of those support people. They are completely cut off of every single one of them. So all the great stuff that they built there is now gone. So I said, there is no way we are going to do that. When the girls leave our program, they have to have access to us. So we allow them to, we still give them therapy. We pay for their therapy for up to a year once they've left us. We continue helping them with groceries if we need to, or we have mentors for them to visit them. I was just out with a grad today. I took her out for lunch and we had a couple hours together, just checking in, seeing how she's doing. How can I help you? How can I help you be accountable? What needs do you have? All that kind of stuff, right? We have teachers that still help them get their education even once they've left us. So we are making sure that even when they leave, it's not just cut off, boom, you're gone, see you later, hope you do well. It's we're going to stick with you. Even if you have trouble while you're out there, we want to still stick with you and help you. So that is going to make a huge difference in their success.
One more small thing. Sorry, I'm I know you guys are short of time.
No, it's okay.
Suppose like 4 people, they stage 2, everything good. They just left. They're gonna be their own. They have some, some education, whatever. How you guys follow them? Like in justice system, there's a PO. There is a assigned PO, right? You have to come meet that person once a month, say about your reports, how you doing. Do you guys have something like that, or you just call them, hey, everything okay? They say, yeah, everything okay.
No.
Or you guys visit their home, or do you ask them to come once a month to tell us how you doing outside?
We're
Something like
meeting them weekly right now. So we meet them weekly, and about 4 or 5 times a week, we're trying to have touch points with them. So case managers will go into their house. We will meet other places. Teachers will go into their place. Also just to check on them and make sure their hygiene is good. They're still cleaning. They're cooking. Like we have one of our volunteers that wants to go help the one girl make a bunch of meals and get them prepped and ready. Yes, there's ongoing. I personally meet with the people that want to still stay in contact. I personally will meet with them once a month, but there's other contact points happening weekly. So, and multiple times a week, not just once a week.
Good. Thank you. That's all I want to know.
Oh, for sure. Because if not, that's not any good. We saw
Exactly.
that.
Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
one more thing came in my mind. Last thing.
Yes.
What do you think? What is lacking doing all these things to you guys, like community support, awareness? Because there are so many people, I go to Niagara Falls sometime, to visit my friends and stuff. And the mottos are like a lot of people come from Montreal, different cities, and I hear a lot of things, you know what I mean? So how, like, I think community awareness or support is very important than law system or anybody else to stop those things. What do you think, and where do you think you're lacking?
Where do you think we're lacking as an organization, or
As this system, like human trafficking, or
as
there
a
are so
system?
many other things, not only sex, there's so many
Okay.
other things. A lot of people are like scared, they don't want to say anything, whatever,
Yeah.
right? So what do you think, how we can aware more people to stop these things? Like somebody will come and stop, out of 10 people, of course not everybody's same. So at least awareness is there. Oh, something is wrong, maybe I will tell police, or maybe I tell my friends something happening there, those kind of awareness. We need that in the community, not for this, for anything wrong. We should be like togetherness, you know what I'm saying?
I totally hear you. And I think that the biggest thing I found is there's a lot of red tape in ministries, schools. Like there's just, you have to jump through hoops to do anything. That's what I find. Even like in the mental, I think one of the biggest problems we have is the mental health system is very broken. So we had a situation where we had a young lady who was delusional, and we needed her to go to the hospital because she was just not safe. But we could not make her. Eventually, we persuaded her to go, but they would not take her, even though they knew she was delusional and had to go, because she has the right to deny it. And that is a huge problem, because we are working with these people, and if we don't have a connection to be able to get them the proper help, then what do we do? It wasn't safe for her to stay with us. It wasn't like I wasn't going to throw her on the street, but she wasn't able to stay with us at that time. And so that's a problem, the mental health system, for sure. I think that there needs to be more awareness. I think that there's a lot of people that want to bury their head in the sand. They don't want to believe. I actually had someone call me once from Alora because there was an article written, and someone called saying like, that's not good for our reputation here to be saying these lies about our town. And I'm like, we're not saying lies. Like, we've had people from Alora in our organization. Like, people don't want to admit that it's happening, and they don't necessarily want to do something about it. And it's because it hasn't happened to them yet, or it hasn't that they know of. If you have a personal situation where it's your sister or your daughter or your best friend's daughter, you're going to have a completely different outlook on human trafficking than you would if you're not affected by it. So if you're not affected by it, who cares? That's what a lot of the world thinks. And that's really, really sad. I think that movie that came out, what was that? A Sound of Freedom. I think that was a great movie to make people aware of what's going on. It doesn't exactly explain how things go in Canada, but still, it was a good eye opener for people to see that this is happening. I mean, I've spoken twice at a school. I would love to get into the schools and talk more about healthy relationships and stuff like that. Sometimes that's really hard. There's a lot of politics to get into anything like that. And all I'm trying to do is give education. I'm not looking for a paycheck. I'm not looking for people to pay me to go speak. I am just wanting to share information to keep children safe. So there's a lot of problems, Sam. There's a lot of problems.
Yeah, I know.
There's a lot of problems because
I know exactly what you're saying, because this is what I was expecting from you, because the politicians, everything, the pictures, numbers, everything looks good, but Behind that, nothing is there.
Well, and the government, as of today, still does not support our organization at all. So like it's not like it's not easy for somebody like us to like I'm thankful for the amazing support we have in this community. I'm thankful for the beautiful donors that believe in this vision and have given us money. But other than some community grants, everything we have is from very generous donors who believe in this mission. I have no money coming from the government. So it is really hard, like, but I know it's the right thing to do. And
Is
so,
that yeah?
yeah.
Is that possible? If you can send some pamphlets, flyers, or something for awareness, so we can we and I think you guys also can do it, Lynn. Your Youth for Change. A lot of youth watch that. Like maybe they don't join, but they're shy or whatever. But if we can put it on our websites and help Luisa and help ourselves for our communities to bring the people out, come on, help, support. This is what it starts from us.
Yeah.
Politicians will come later when they see like, oh, 200 people want support, let's support them. You know what I'm saying?
For
It's
sure.
a teamwork. If you can send, to Lynn, and then Lynn can share with us, we can post it and we can tag you, we can share with you, so we can work together to help each other. Simple.
No, that's great. We do have like little business cards with information with codes on it to go to our website. And we have little like pamphlets and stuff like that. The website is a good place to go. We also have, which I'm going to share on the going to just put that in right now and share it on the chat. We have the coldest night of the year happening in Elora, February 22nd, which is a national, like it's all over Canada and the United States, happening in all different cities and towns. And we're raising money for Elora House and raising awareness. So if you guys aren't doing something Saturday, February 22nd, you can come, and I just posted the link on the chat, and you can go in there and you can join the team. You can walk with us, you can raise money with us, or you can donate, whatever you want to do, or you can just post it. If you follow us on Instagram or Facebook, you can repost our things. That's a good way, like, to help us, get the word out there. So yeah, I love that, Sam. I think that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just as Sam said, it takes everybody working together, and it is a win-win if we all do truly work together. And I think it's important to highlight survivors of trauma and success stories as opposed to victims of trauma.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
it's just changing the narrative.
Oh, for sure. And
yeah.
you know what? In the home, we never call them victims. We actually, I don't even like using the word survivor, because I feel like survivor, like you're just barely making it.
There you go.
We want them to thrive, and we want them to be confident women. And so we talk about that with them. We do a lot of positive reflection and affirmations with them, and leave them little notes everywhere and tell them how much we believe in them, and send them, like, we do like what's called a love circle. And when they do, like, they pass things or they achieve things, like we will walk, go around, the staff will all share like what they see in them, and those are, or write letters of encouragement. Those are really powerful things. Some of them say, we've never felt so loved in our whole life. We've never felt so encouraged.
Yeah.
I have like a lot of letters from girls that say all basically the same thing around about just thanking us for loving them, thanking us for making them feel special, that they matter.
That's amazing, Louisa. Thank you. Final thoughts or questions just as before we wrap up? I know there's a lot to cover. Louisa, we could do another segment with you for sure, guaranteed. So,
For sure, we need to do one more segment and more elaboration for more people is better.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know I mentioned before to any of our viewers and listeners, Sam, that we have had Louise on as a guest before for one of our other programs. So I'd like to keep this relationship going. And as you mentioned, kind of all work together, right? Where we can shine light on matters of the heart and what's really important
Yes.
to our youth.
Yes, for
Any
sure.
final thoughts, anyone on the way out here?
Thank you very much. It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda, Sam, and Jack for coming. I really appreciate that. And thank you, Lynn, for having me. It's very exciting to me when I see people that are interested in making change. I think that's beautiful.
Thank you. And thank you, Louisa. So we will put stuff up on our social media so people could find more information on Allure House and what the missions and values are of Allure House. It's very important because you are the founder and you have created this amazing, amazing safe space. So thank you, Louisa, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for anyone tuning in, don't forget to follow us on social media. We would love to hear from you. Any ideas or programming. You're watching Youth Connections Cafe for Youth for Change Canada. So shout out to Youth for Change for allowing us once again to be here on this safe platform. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.